Hello and welcome to Unpacking Terms. The term we're going to be unpacking today is Dictogloss. And what I'll present here is a simplified version of the work by Wynne, Wajnryb, and Wong, especially Wajnryb since she was the one who proposed the term dictogloss. So what is a dictogloss? It is a type of text reconstruction task. And a dictogloss is believed to be good for language development for several reasons. The first one is it involves both input and output. The second one is that it involves multiple modalities. You have written and oral language. The third one is that it is one way of doing focus on form, which we unpacked in another video. And it involves collaborative learning. And the name Dictogloss is because there is dictation involved, but then the learners in the initial stages end up with brief annotations, and that's the gloss part. Why? Because unlike regular dictation, where you listen to somebody and then you write down exactly what they're saying, in a dictogloss, the dictation part and the writing part happen at different times. So let's go step by step. Step 1 consists of preparation. The instructor helps the learners become familiarized with the vocab in the topic of the paragraph that the instructor will read. In step 2, here's the dictation part, but it's dictation without writing. The teacher reads a passage twice. The students are supposed to only listen and try to remember as much as possible. In step 3, here's where the students write. And also here's where the collaborative learning comes into play. The students work in pairs to try to reconstruct the passage word for word as closely to the original as they can remember. In step 4, here's where the learners can see the original version and then make any revisions or additions as needed. The last step, which was not included in the original Dictogloss, but I think it is absolutely crucial, is to do something meaningful with the text. What can you do with the text? Well, of course, you can do comprehension questions, you can do personal reaction, you can even do things like coming up with a title for it, you can do things like illustrating that text, etc. Now, the explanation that I gave you is probably the classic Dictogloss, but there are some possible modifications. So one possible modification is to let students take notes while you read the passage. However, this may not be a good idea depending on your learners. For lower level learners, I would say it's too much to be taking notes and listening to you at the same time without them trying to write down everything you're saying, which of course is very difficult. Another possibility to help learners is to provide them with keywords or with images. Of course, another modification is to read the passage more than twice. And for lower level learners, you may need to do that. Even for more advanced learners, if the passage is a little bit complicated, it doesn't hurt to read it 3 times. And another possibility would be to let learners see the text while you read. And again, this may or may not be advisable depending on whether the learners are going to be distracted by looking at the text versus listening to you. You could display the text first so they read it and they take some time to read it, and then you read it twice. That's another possibility. There are some important things to keep in mind when you are creating a dictogloss. The first one, obviously, the text should be level appropriate and should not be too long. So if the text contains too much unfamiliar language and it is simply too long to remember, the students are just going to get frustrated. On the other hand, if the text is too easy and too short, then all they're doing is reproducing language from a huge memorized chunk, so to speak, and they're not actually processing the language. So we don't want that extreme either. And another thing to keep in mind is that although we want the passage to be level appropriate and comprehensible to the learners, that doesn't mean we should produce something that sounds unnatural or is not true to the language. And the third thing that I want you to remember is that this should be a meaningful and contextualized task. These are not just random sentences that the learners are supposed to memorize and then reproduce. The beauty of a dictogloss is that it is a contextualized paragraph. And many times it is a short story, an anecdote. It could also be someone's opinion on a topic, for example. And if you're wondering, why can't we just give the students the paragraph? Why are we asking them to do this extra step of reconstructing it? Well, as this quote says, some researchers postulate that requiring learners to engage in output via recreating a text may push them to process input more deeply than just working with input alone. And as great as a dictogloss sounds, I think it's important not to overdo it. Don't turn every text into a dictogloss. It is simply one more tool in your toolbox, and it is one way of offering variety in the types of tests you do in class and increasing the likelihood that learners will notice and process certain things in the input. There's still a lot more to unpack, so be sure to subscribe. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time.